We rolling? I see the recording flashing light. Okay, so in order for us to actually get a token and show the same thing working, what I can do is I'm gonna run the app again, but this time I'm gonna use this specialized URL is pointing to experience.adobe.com, and this way I'm going to actually be logging in to Experience, and it is going to redirect to localhost with an actual user token. So this is the exact same code, but you'll notice that all of a sudden I'm in this this outer frame, which includes this top bar, and there's orgs that I belong to, and I've logged into one. This is me here. So I'm signed in, and I should be able to select the same action and invoke it. And in this case, I see a success. So this isn't actually doing much. It's actually just calling the backend, and the backend is returning, I think, just a header. I won't dig into it, but it is an authenticated call, and this is how we are doing that. Okay, that's my demo. Does anyone want to ask any questions about any of this?
No, this is awesome. This is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it very, very simple. We will be producing, how do I get deeper into analytics? If you go to each of those repos, there's actually a lot more that you can do with each of those APIs. And we're hopeful that we get a bunch of new applications that we hadn't thought of making, because people can mix and match different product APIs.
And I think your manifest format for deploying a project is largely Whisk deploy, or? Yeah,
we have one part here which is actually replaced with values from package.json. So currently we're taking the name from package.json and the version and calling that the package that we deploy to.
So all we need for Whisk deploy, we need to add interpolation for just key names, perhaps.
Yep. And then we're embedding secrets as well, which are coming from ENV.
All right, thanks, Jesse. So we'll move on just so that I can get through my part and also give Dylan enough time.
Thank you.
Share my screen back. So I'm going to show something similar for Jamstack and stateful functions with Nimbella. And what we've done, and we're sort of announcing and publicizing some of these capabilities, what you're going to see is essentially a demo that shows off what I think of as deep service integrations for storage and functions. So we're able to co-locate the key value store with your functions for very fast access. Every function has access to an object store and key value store right out of the box. That's every Nimbella account gets that bundled in. And it's essentially extending the model of serverless to storage. You need object store, it's just there. You need a key value store, it's just there. It grows as you need it. It's backed up and secured for you. It's only accessible from within your functions. When you deploy a project or your application to the cloud, it's to a dedicated domain name that is yours as a project owner. It's configured with a CDN. You get an SSL certificate. You're going to see essentially all of that in the demo I'm going to show. Similar to what Jesse just showed in the notion of project packaging, we also think of repeatable units of deployment. which is an entire project. So everything you need, plus the environment secrets that you need, should be repeatable so that somebody else could just plug in their secrets, and the entire stack is up, from provisioning the CDN, the buckets, the data store, the functions, etc. And maybe because of time, I won't show all the demos I wanted to go through, but we have a notion of project deployment that you can deploy straight out of GitHub, whether you're in a browser or your terminal. Our stack at Nimbella is powered by Apache OpenWhisk for the functions execution. There's container orchestration, and as I mentioned, deep service integrations. We built essentially an administrative tool that allows us to deploy OpenWhisk on multiple clouds, where we use Kubernetes as a way of normalizing across different clouds. So we have deployments in Google Cloud and in Amazon today. And we've built a lot of automation very similar to what Jesse was talking about. We needed identity management, authentication, and a lot of that when we built OpenWhisk, we felt is the platform providers sort of concern. And now that we are a platform provider at Nimbella, we've built a lot of that. And we focused a lot on automation of operations because we are a small team. So there's a lot of monitoring and self-healing in the system and the ability to scale up and scale down compute resources as needed. We built a command line tool, and when we learned about Adobe I/O's runtime CLI, which Jesse pointed out earlier, we experimented with it, and I really liked it. It's powered by Oak Cliff, Open CLI framework, and because it already, the starting base for us was, it gave us a lot of Whisk compatibility. There are some things that are not equal parity, but are very close. So we extended it and started using that as our base. And the thing that's been very attractive from my perspective has been how easy it is to extend. And we've basically just used it and bundled it as part of our own command line tooling, which we call NIM, short for Nimbella. We have also browser tooling, and for that we adopted work out of IBM called OUI, which stands for OpenWhisk UI. It itself is based on KUI, which is a Kubernetes UI. So it's a framework for building, REPL-like and shell environments that you can serve from the browser. I'll show you that quickly. And if you're interested, you can try it on nimbella.com/request. We'd love your feedback. And if you try it and give us feedback, I promise some nice perks. We're at a point where feedback is very important and very useful for us. So I'm going to show you two quick demos because of time. One of them requires your participation. So if you copy that link, bit.ly/hello OpenWhisk, you should see a page that says, your unique visitor X. And this is, if you visit that page, you're going to be entering, you'll be redirected to an application I'm hosting out of my domain. You'll notice here it's my own domain. This is secured by an SSL certificate. It's on nimbella.io. If you do visit it, then you'll see there's a unique, there should be a different unique counter for you. And what we're doing in this application, this is a very simple application. It's on GitHub. It has a web component, which is index.html, makes a couple of backend calls to retrieve the page count and some page information. And then there's a couple of functions in here, one for the counter and one for rendering the information on the page. So if I do, this is our browser-based interface. So you have the, this is the code. And then I can look at, in my web bucket, I have the index.html and the Nimbella logo that was on the page. I can look at my key value store. And it has a key. Right, so 5 people have visited the page. Thank you for participating. So this is, an application that you could deploy right out of GitHub. I'm not going to do it here, but it would essentially be right from the browser. You could do GitHub Bella/demo projects/visits. And if you had an account, this would essentially deploy the application right out of GitHub into your namespace. We jump ahead to, and here's where I ran it a few minutes ago to actually prime and reset the counter to 1. I'm going to do so I'll show you. I only have 2 actions in my namespace now. And this application is, again, front end, back end is stateful. You'll see that as I go through it. Basically, you can drag an image into the browser, and it will perform, it will use Tesseract, a neural network model to recognize the characters in the image and then do image to text translation. And then there's a fun API on there to do text to speech. This also is a repeatable unit of deployment. And what's useful about, or what I think is, easing the burden on developers is like the visits project doesn't have a project manifest. It's just your code, your front end, there's no manifest. And we're using essentially how you lay out your project to infer what are web contents and what are functions, and we just deploy. OCR, on the other hand, does have a project manifest, but it's very light. In this case, I needed to set the limits because some of the AI recognition requires a bit more time. But there's a lot of other things that get deployed from this function automatically inferred by the tool. So it's reducing the burden for you on having to write more and more manifest code that can be inferred by usually opinionated ways of laying out the directory structure. So let's see. So this got deployed. So now if you hit the same URL, you'll see a different application because I deployed something different. And you can also try this out. I have a couple of images here I'll use. Let's see. So when I drag and drop the image, this gets uploaded to an object store that's unique to my account. And then it runs the OCR on the back end and then tells me when it's done. I can look at the result and then I can speak it. All right, so now to show a bit more of the stateful aspects, every function takes several seconds to run, and we're able to sort of query how far along the function is and display a progress bar. So starting the processing, so this one is done. This is 28% done. And then you see them finish as they're going. So there's polling going on. It's calling every function instance that says, "Are you done? Are you done?" And what's happened here is so there's a number of applications. You see some of the polling. You see some of the activations that executed. And now I have a lot of things in my object store. Every one of those images that I uploaded are there. And I can look at my key value store. And there's a number of tokens here and here. Each one is a tracker for each one of those images. So let's just. Whoops. All right, never mind. I was going to show you what some of the progress looks like. All right, so that's what I wanted to show about Nimbella. It's essentially the ability to build entire applications, front end, back end. Object storage, key value storage is completely there for you so that you can just start building and not worry about some of that. And it's largely powered by Apache OpenWhisk and the functions, and all of the service integrations for memory is deeply integrated into essentially invokers at platform level. Any questions before I transfer to Dylan? All right, Dylan, it's all yours if you want to start sharing.
Sure. Thanks for having me here to talk a little bit about just some of the proof of concept work my team and I have been doing around OpenWhisk and the CNCF workflow specification. I guess I'll just give just a quick background of the motivations behind the project. So at Adobe, we have a lot of products and a lot of APIs. And we also do our fair share of acquisitions, and these companies obviously come with products and APIs as well. And within the developer ecosystem or organization at Adobe, we believe that extensibility of our platform is super important. And we want to enable our customers to execute and deliver on whatever use case they can dream up, whether it be integration between our products or between our products and third-party APIs. And the reality is that there's always going to be a use case that a customer has that we don't offer an out-of-the-box solution for. Of course, it will be possible via our APIs, but a developer is required to write the code, their use case, and to utilize the APIs to perform whatever task. And that's totally acceptable, but we think we can offer something a little bit better that has less friction and provides greater extensibility for our customers. So my team was envisioning, how can we make this better? And we've looked at, creating a workflow engine built on top of Adobe I/O Runtime, which of course is our OpenWhisk implementation of OpenWhisk, and provide like a low code, no code option to our customers. So that's where this kind of came out of. So let me just share my screen. Hopefully this works. The button. Can you see my screen? Oh, I have the share button.
Not yet. Now I can, yes.
So what could this look like at a very high level? So we're exploring a kind of a workflow builder user experience where you could go in and we create different integrations for, say, analytics, target, all our different products, and of course in there could be third-party integrations as well. And you could basically sequence a set of actions to perform whatever task you can dream up. I mean, APIs are pretty well defined, and so there's not necessarily a reason why you have to go and write code to integrate with these APIs. It could be done in a no-code fashion, but obviously with the opportunity to allow you to write custom functions to do whatever little bits of data manipulation you would need to do. That would also be supported in this. And so the end result of this workflow builder would be a workflow definition. And this is where the CNCF specification comes into play. We looked around to see what existed for OpenWhisk around workflows. And the nice thing about this specification is it's vendor neutral. So it doesn't make any assumptions that you're using Lambda or OpenWhisk or any of these platforms. And so we look to see, okay, can we use this now to build out our vision here? And so the idea is that you have this workflow that you've just created in the workflow builder, and then we have Adobe I/O events, which would allow you to kick off these workflows when real-time events happen through any of our products. And so the idea is that an event would come in, we would have this workflow engine, which would then read in the workflow for the specific event, and then go kick off a series of actions for the workflow. If you haven't looked at the CNCF specification, again, it just describes how you can set up either a sequence of events or that would run in sequence or in parallel, and each state can have multiple actions, and it's really well defined. It's still a moving target here because I think they're still very much working on it, but it's definitely worth a read. And so this is an example workflow definition here that basically, you describe some of the functions that are part of this workflow, the events that can come out of it, and then here's a simple set of states where first you do a credit check, and then you, based on the results from this action here, you would either run the approval workflow or the denied one. So that's just a simple example there. So taking it back to what we're trying to do, or what we've kind of been playing around with, and I will say that this is just a proof of concept at this point, and so please don't read too much into the architecture or what we're trying to do specifically. Lots to figure out. But again, an event would come in, we would get the action or get the workflow definition associated with that event. we would then loop through all of the states of the event, and each state can have multiple actions, and then we would loop through all the actions, run the actions, send the response back, store it in some sort of global context, and that would allow, you know, actions to be built on top of each other. So you could take the result of one action or one state and feed it into the next one to build a whole workflow out, and this global context would kind of keep that. And then the end result is some sort of response back. So we really spent a lot of time just kind of looking at the data modeling, right? So how do we describe an integration? What are the different things that you need to take an integration or to take an API and describe it into an integration? And so we spent a lot of time thinking about this and kind of trying to write helper functions. So could you take a Swagger spec and ingest it into this and then expose it through actions and stuff like that? So a lot of time has been spent on that, and also the workflow specification as well. So these models all are written in TypeScript, and then we output JSON schema, and then that would be used largely to drive the user interface for the workflow builder and the rest of the stuff. So let me see here. Let's do a demo quick. So this is a sample here of a workflow I've created. So the first step of this workflow is to get an IMS.
Any chance you can just make that font a little bit bigger?
Yeah, let me try.
Thanks.
So first step is to get an access token. Adobe has an identity management system, and so really you need that to do anything. So first step, get an access token, and then the second step here is we are basically calling the analytics API to get a report suite. And so you can see that we've defined some input parameters. So this all is, I should have said, all of this definition here is CNCF compliant. And is in line with their specification. So here we're calling this specific function, and we're passing in the report suite ID that we want to get the information about. These are just some other parameters that are specific to this API. And then we're passing the token, so you can see here that the result, the data output path, is going to be put into the context in this object IMS.IMS token. And then this is the output path that this would be put into. And so you can see here that we're passing in, this API needs the token. So we're taking from the context, from that action, the access token. And then within the action, it can pull this out to get the result or to use it to make the call. And then similarly, it's defining its output as well. And then in the next action, we actually load we get a report suite from the analytics API. So we take that report suite ID that came from the last call, and we feed it into this one so it can now act on it as well. And so running this here will basically run those two actions, and all you're going to really see is the global context that comes out of it. That's all we're doing at this point, is just spitting that out. So you can see the analytics report that was run, and so that's the data from the analytics report, and then here is the result of the IMS call, and then the result of the report suite stuff. And then sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, a couple questions. Don't mean to interrupt, just because we're almost out of time. Are you thinking, two questions. One, are you thinking about sort of high-level generation of this low-level description, something like the Apache OpenWhisk Composer JavaScript library? And then if you can say anything about the implementation, are you using OpenWhisk conductor actions, or is there a new orchestrator that you've had to build based on what you were saying before to do? Yeah.
So this part, so we are using Composer. Composer, I guess I can just show it. Composer is what's basically responsible for looping through all the different aspects of it, and then Conductor is the piece that we're using to run each of the states each of the actions within a state. So it's two-part that we kind of went with there.
Great, thank you.
And yeah, and then I was just going to show the last bit there was just to add on, writing generic functions. So for third-party APIs, we could take a Swagger spec. We have all the gets, the posts, whatever, and so we should be able to use generic, get API or get actions to execute that. And so I was just going to uncomment this, and then it would basically get a list of repos, but you get the idea. Yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. It's still very early days, but I appreciate you giving me the time to come and kind of show what we're thinking about.
Yeah, thank you. No, this is really great, and I think this model, especially with CNCF and some of the standardization, could be really nice. I'm curious, as you further the implementation, are there capabilities in the OpenWhisk core that would prove helpful to sort of make the implementation easier? And I've always thought that sort of this model lends itself to some optimizations, like, can you fuse some states together? Can you reorder them for performance or, data transfer issues, which has been largely underexplored just in terms of research and implementation. So I like this topic a lot. Thanks again, Dylan.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
And thanks, Jesse, for presenting. At a time, I think I'll just pause 1 minute to see if there, or 30 seconds to see if anybody wants to cover anything else, or if there's an update on release 1.0, and then would like select a host for our next call, which is on May 13th, I believe. All right, so it's no topics, no volunteers. We can't end the call without a volunteer, so we'll just stay here. All right, we'll take it offline. Thanks everyone for joining.
Sorry, Roderick. I can do it.
All right, thanks, Dave.
I can do the 13th.
All right, thanks, Dave. So thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for the presenters, Dylan, Jesse. I really appreciate it. And that concludes our call for today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
You guys, bye.